Yes, now they're saying it out loud. Michelle Obama could sneak her way into the 2024 presidential race when Joe Biden falls down a flight of stairs and doesn't get up. Do you think they have a presidential edition of the Medic Alert? They certainly should. I think it'd be a great promo for the people at Medic Alert, too. Well, happy Friday and welcome back to the Chris Plante Show. That's right, the New York Post with a story yesterday. Michelle Obama could sneak her way into the 2024 presidential race, according to a New York Post columnist. And it's something that you and I have been talking about for quite some time now. It would not come as a surprise. Of course, at this point, very little would come as a surprise. Giant lizards in South Carolina, crazy political lunacy everywhere you look. Michelle Obama could sneak her way to the 2024 presidential race, and she revealed she's terrified. She's terrified. They're running on a policy. Their whole story is about being terrified, being afraid. It was Kamala Harris on The View the other day, who was very afraid, too afraid to speak. And Michelle Obama is terrified. They're terrified because, you remember the Trump years when everything was peaceful. There was no war in Europe, no war in the Middle East. Our border was under control. Carjackings were rare. You could go to the drugstore and there would be things on the shelves because the Democrats hadn't stolen everything in the store in acts of mob criminal violence. It was a different time. Gasoline was $1.87 a gallon across the country. And the Democrats think that was all terrible because we need more of all those bad things. We need giant lizards, the Tegu lizard. We need war in Europe. And we need tens of billions of dollars to fund the war in Europe. We need to pay off everybody's student debt because that's how the Democrats are buying votes from young people. And young people have been so mal-educated, so miseducated by the left that they think it's great to just put it on the tab for later. It's not. It's not great to put it on the tab for later. It's your tab, dummies. But it's hard to recognize that when you're 25 years old, isn't it? The 74,000 student loan borrowers getting $5 billion, the White House announced today. Another $5 billion, that's lunch money. I mean, don't even talk to me about $5 billion. That's nothing. We're talking in trillions for the most part. Extraordinary stuff. And the Congress embarrassingly passed another idiotic stopgap bill that'll keep our ridiculous government running for a matter of days before they have another fake crisis made for cable television. And I'm the front page of the Washington Post. Stopgap bill delays threat of shutdown until March. Yeah, until March. But wait a minute. It's January 19th. March is not far away. I can drive a golf ball to March. But never mind that. And there's the Washington Post. They are a big part of the problem. Filthy, corrupt people. Pooey! I spit on your Washington Post. So we've got that going for us, among other things. And boy, do we have other things too. Not necessarily going for us, but never mind that. Yes, debt forgiveness. That's what they call it, debt forgiveness. Very generous of us to forgive the debt of this group of people that they took on themselves willingly. And they say some people have been paying off their student loans for 20 years. Firefighters, they say, have been paying off their student loans for 20 years. Maybe they did it wrong. I'm hoping. Just extraordinary stuff. Yes, sir. So we've got that. And, of course, we have politics going on. And next week, next Tuesday, we've got the New Hampshire primary. And President Trump is dominating. And that is making the mental illness of the left more apparent. It's not... You got to phrase this correctly, I think. President Trump doesn't make them crazy. They are crazy. See? He reveals or exposes their craziness, which already exists on every level. They're pro-crime and anti-police. They love looting. They love burning police cars. They love defunding the police. They love letting criminals go after the big, we had this illegal alien from El Salvador with the MS-13 tattoos we were talking about yesterday. And He murdered a 20-year-old autistic woman after raping her naturally and strangled her to death with a phone cord, and then he went and had lunch with his half-brother or his step-brother or something. And when he was arrested, the Democrats put him in foster care. They didn't put the illegal alien murderer, MS-13 member, directly into prison. They put him into foster care, into a foster home. If that makes sense to you, I would like you to leave the country today and not come back, because you're clearly severely mentally impaired. A lot like Joe Biden. In fact, we've got some Joe Biden audio today, reaffirming, as though it needed reaffirmation, that Joe Biden is severely mentally impaired. Just extraordinary. But we do have the politics, And honestly, I've never wanted President Trump to be back in the White House so much ever before. The Democrats have lost their minds. And they're throwing around billions and billions of dollars to buy votes, and the media laps it up like the rescue dogs that they are. Amazing stuff. Biden, and it doesn't go through Congress. They're just stealing money. Biden and the White House and the Department of Health and Human Services, and giving it away to people to buy votes. The White House put out a statement. My administration is able to deliver relief to these borrowers and millions more because of fixes we made to broken student loan programs. There's nothing broken about the student loan programs. That were preventing borrowers from getting relief they were entitled to under the law. Really, the law has it that other people pay off the student loans of people that go to Harvard and George Washington University. Then, maybe it's time we have a revolutionary election. I'm just saying. And in New Hampshire, I got to tell you, the presidential election can't come fast enough. And the Democrat Party, which is a violent party, a criminal party, an anti-American party, an anti-capitalist party, a racist party, the Democrat Party, they're going to absolutely lose it when President Trump is reelected. You saw what happened when George Floyd, a career criminal, died of heart failure while being arrested for yet another felony, and they burned the country down from coast to coast. Billions in damage, thousands of police injured, dozens of people murdered, and the news media told us it was mostly peaceful, which is why we have mostly peaceful coffee mugs and T-shirts at the Chris Plant store. And we have the left is coming for your rights. The left is coming for your rights. Coffee mugs, T-shirts, Chris Plant store on Al Gore's amazing internet. Peace be upon him. But President Trump is doing well, I think you could say. The St. Alsam College survey came up with a poll that in New Hampshire, President Trump is carrying 52% of the vote. Nikki Haley, 38% of the vote. Ron DeSantis, 6% of the vote. That's not very high. That's not very good. And I'm surprised by that, I will confess. The Boston Globe Suffolk poll has President Trump at 50%, Nikki Haley at 36%. So 2 points down for each of those compared to the St. Anselm poll. And still 6% for Ron DeSantis. That's got to be painful, doesn't it? That hurts. He's a very successful governor. You'd think that he'd have some political chops, but maybe you'd be wrong. Now, Jeff, we've got a lot of crazy Democrat audio today, don't we? We most certainly do. And, also the Democrats are planning on monkey wrenching the system in New Hampshire. That's an old left-wing trick to come in and monkey wrench the system by just getting mobs of people to screw things up. They're getting lots of Democrats and independents to vote for Nikki Haley so that Trump doesn't do as well, to make it look bad for him. But they're doing it in a crooked, corrupt, devious way, which they're fine with. And the party's leadership is fine with that too. Make no mistake. And I want to get to some crazy Democrat stuff. We've got Barbara Lee, we've got Joe Biden, and a lot of moving parts. Today also is the March for Life on the Mall in Washington, D.C. That's the pro-life march, because we've had, 63 64 million abortions. Literally, that's not a fake number. 63 or 64 million abortions, reducing the population since Roe versus Wade in 1973. And the Democrats, there's more parking for everyone. Reminds me of the Randy Newman song, boom goes London, boom Paris, more room for you and more room for me. Let's drop the big one and see what happens. 63 million abortions. So since 1973. So reduce the population by well over 100 million people. And they give out awards for it in the name of a racist by the name of Margaret Sanger, who was a eugenicist, which means she wanted to exterminate people based on their race. Basically, the Nazis picked up a lot of her work. And Hillary Clinton and Jane Fonda both have the Margaret Sanger Award, presumably proudly displayed on a mantle in their multi-million-dollar homes. It's an amazing time to be alive. All right, now, Jeff, I'd like to get to Barbara Lee. We have two different Barbara Lee audio cuts. Am I right about that? Two different incidents involving Democrat Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who is certifiably insane. I think I might want to start with the CNN. You have the CNN because Barbara Lee went on to CNN and she claims that she was walking to her story doesn't make any sense, but that doesn't matter because Democrats, The story is that she was walking to the Capitol. There are no elevators when you're walking to the Capitol. Then suddenly a white man, because she's a racist, comes up to her and tells her she can't get in that elevator. But wait, I thought you were walking to the Capitol. Now you're in the Capitol. And she's going to get in. In the Capitol, they have elevators that are reserved for members of Congress only, right? And a white man says to her, because she's a black woman, you can't get in that elevator, right? And this is a big lie, and she's sitting there talking to Caitlin Collins, who actually, this is amazing stuff, who actually tweeted this out like it was real. Crazy, mentally ill, racist Democrat Congresswoman Barbara Lee making up a pathetic, paranoid little story.
These are not little kinks, first of all. Racism, institutional racism, is in the DNA of this country. When you look at what has taken place, look at our Native Americans, the genocide of Native Americans. When you look at what
there are none left, they're all gone.
To African Americans, the 250 years plus of enslaving African Americans.
You're a Democrat.
You look at the disparities now in our community in terms of health care, unemployment, the wealth gap, housing. You can't tell me that systemic racism does not exist. It's not just a little kink. Secondly, you have personal racism, which is hard to address, but I'll give you one little story that shows you why we need to understand that I don't think she really understands racism. I was walking from
talking about Nikki Haley
on Capitol Hill to the Capitol, and a white guy, stopped me and told me I could not get into the members' elevator.
There's an elevator outside.
Pens, and I was going to vote. And he blocked me from getting into the elevator and told me I was not a member of Congress and it was for members only. I said, sir, I'm a member of Congress. And I showed him my pen, and he said, whose pen did you steal? Now, this is an example of what personal racism is and how people of color constantly have to deal with this each and every day. But systemic racism is in the policies of this country, and just look at what they're trying to do in terms of eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're trying to not
which is
allow
racist.
For an equal and level playing field.
It's the opposite of equal and level.
Very dangerous position that she has. She's clueless.
Nikki Haley is being attacked.
That's a shame, and I'm sorry that you had to deal with that, Congresswoman. Thank you for sharing that with us, and thanks.
Thank you for sharing that with us. It's such a moving story. Now, how did the members-only elevator get outside the Capitol? And aren't there cameras everywhere when they're said? Because she's walking to the Capitol, and a white man who's a racist walked up to her and said, you can't get in this outdoor elevator. That's for members only. Suddenly, she's inside the Capitol. And they have the members of Congress have lapel pins that are large, and you can see them. That is a completely fictitious story. That never happened. She should go pull a fire alarm. She's out of her mind. And she's been out of her mind for a whole lot of years. Everybody knows she's out of her mind. Got another out of her mind soundbite of her coming up. And did you hear about The other radical, extremist, racist Democrat member of the House calling for reparations. He's got a dollar figure, too. This is madness. Madness, I say. Coming right up. 888-630-9625.
You're listening to The Chris Plante Show.
All right, crazy Congresswoman Barbara Lee also went in and disrupted a hearing yesterday for a subcommittee of which she is not a member. She's not a member of the committee, but she went in to spout pro-communist, pro-Cuba propaganda. And again, the media defers this woman. This whole crazy story about walking to the Capitol, and there's an outdoor elevator, and she went to get on the members-only outdoor elevator, and a white guy stopped her because he told her she's not a member of Congress. There are cameras, as we know, January 6th, everywhere in the Capitol. Let's get the video footage of that white guy stopping you from getting on an elevator, you racist fraud. And then she went into a congressional hearing yesterday. And this one is pretty amazing because the chair of the committee was having none of it and had to kick her out, of the... Here comes Democrat Congresswoman Barbara Lee.
Madam Chair, I served on the subcommittee for many, many years.
Past tense.
Woman who has a point of view where in a democracy those points of views are allowed.
Points of view, not point of views.
Is by denying myself, a member of Congress who represents the same number of constituents you represent, denying me the opportunity to present my point of view. What is wrong with this kicking?
Well, what's wrong with it is that you're not on this committee, that there is a hearing going on, that you're not a witness, that you just came in, you don't have a seat at the table, she's standing and disrupting.
I would love to have this same type of political discourse in Havana.
Let's have it in Havana. If we normalize relations and have normal diplomatic relations where entrepreneurs can thrive in Cuba.
The only people who have that key is the Cuban regime. They could make that happen right now. And unfortunately, you have been friends with those who are not in favor of the Cuban people.
Oh, yes, she's pushing pro-communist propaganda. House Democrat kicked out of committee hearing she crashed for sharing communist propaganda. She was kicked out by Republican Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar, who knows a thing or two about communism in Cuba. And that's, we should get a white guy to tell her she can't get on the elevator. Drag out of the... This is our Congress, ladies and gentlemen.
This is the Chris Plante Show.
All right, this Barbara Lee, just amazing. What a lunatic. California Democrat, member of the House of Representatives. Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar, a Republican from Florida, kicked Representative Barbara Lee, Democrat, California, out of a House committee hearing about relations between the United States and Cuba, accusing the California Democrat of spreading communist propaganda because that's what she was doing. On Thursday, Lee attended, the Gazette is writing, a hearing of the Western Hemisphere Subcommittee, the House Foreign Affairs Committee, of which she is not a member, and she tried to speak on restoring ties between the two countries. She walked in, she stormed in, she stood there, she started yelling at the committee. She's mentally ill. She should really be taken away and involuntarily institutionalized. We're going to need to build a whole lot more mental institutions because the Democrat Party really should be incarcerated in, not in prison until they commit crimes, which a great many of them do. But the mental illness is rampant. Boy, I'm telling you. She's out of her mind. And then she naturally went on to X. And she said, I was just kicked out of a House Foreign Affairs subcommittee hearing on Cuba policy because the Republican chair didn't like my views. No, that's not what happened. That's another lie from your brain-damaged mouth. I'd share the live stream, but Republicans cut out the sound when I stood up to defend myself and call them out. Well, you weren't near a microphone because you weren't at the dais because you're not on the committee. You were standing in the middle of the room yelling like a mental case. Salazar, the congresswoman from Florida, then went to X and said that she threw her out because she's not a member of the committee. She said, today I exercise my authority as subcommittee chairwoman to not allow an off-committee member to spread communist propaganda during my Cuba hearing, Salazar said. Members are not entitled to join any committee proceeding without full consent of the committee members. But never mind that. Salazar was born in Miami to Cuban parents who fled communist Cuba because of Fidel Castro and communism, but the Democrat Party is closer on the spectrum to Fidel Castro than they are to certainly John F. Kennedy and really even to Bill Clinton. They're closer. This woman is disturbed. Barbara Lee tried to disrupt an important discussion about the Biden administration's lenient policies toward the Cuban regime, Salazar said. Barbara Lee is a communist sympathizer who was a personal friend to Fidel Castro, has visited Cuba 21 times, and has been a mouthpiece for the Cuban regime since 1977. I love Congresswoman Salazar. She is great. She's wonderful. Gosh. And Barbara Lee, they're trying to silence me. Well, it'd be nice if you shut up every now and then. But honestly, maybe a white guy made it happen. Was Fidel Castro a white guy? No, he's, because they got shades of, and if you're not purely Western European Anglo, then you're a minority. You're a brown person, and you're a victim, and you're being victimized by white people who bring you electricity and air travel and, modern medicine and things like that. I went to a meeting of the patriarchy the other night. Jeff, you couldn't make it, I know, the other night to the meeting of the patriarchy. But we were talking seriously. We might have to, pull the plug on electricity for the left. If you pulled it, it'd be like the Gaza. The Gaza, they can't provide their own electricity. They can't provide their own clean water for the 1.9 million people there. So the Israelis provide them with electricity and clean water. And then they attack and, cut their little girls up with butcher knives. And when you cut the water, and they didn't even cut the water off, the fresh water, the news media around the world goes crazy. How dare you cut off the clean drinking water that you provide to the enemies of civilization that are butchering your children? Right? That's kind of like the patriarchy versus, of course, they're both Semites, the Jews and the so-called Palestinians and all that, but never mind that. Completely out of their minds. The left is on a tear. The president of Argentina was at Davos, and he had some great stuff to say about the shape we're in. And he called it out correctly as Western civilization being under assault, right? And that's exactly what is going on now, is the left, and they've organized the mentally deranged people of the world, and they're trying to take over everything, and they're doing a pretty good job because at Davos, and honestly, they should stop holding Davos, don't you think? But this is a great one. The Western world is in danger. Argentine President Milei, who says he's a self-described anarcho-capitalist, which is kind of fun, urges Davos elite to reject socialism. Argentina's President Javier Milei called on the business and political leaders at Davos to reject socialism and instead embrace free enterprise capitalism because it lifts people out of poverty. The Democrats want, they're the left. Don't kid yourself. They're not liberals. Today's Democrat Party is the left. Half of them are too stupid to realize what's happened to the party, and they just parrot whatever they're told because they have become accustomed over the years over the years to doing that. They don't even know that they're anti-American, half of them. They don't even know that they're anti-capitalist. But never mind that. And here is the Argentine president at Davos, the gathering. I assume he flew in on a private jet too. Javier Milei, giving him what for?
I'm here to tell you that the Western world is in danger. And it is endangered because those who are supposed to have to defend the values of the West are co-opted by a vision of the world that inexorably leads to socialism and thereby to poverty.
Yeah, well, he's exactly right. It is the Western world, Western civilization, and the socialists, and it's madness. And he went there and told the truth. And of course, he's speaking Espanol, so there's a translator and all that good stuff. But he was telling what is commonly referred to as the truth, or at least it was the truth, and until not too long ago, when the left really sunk their teeth into the United States of America, the Democrat Party, the news media, university campuses. Today, I'm here to tell you that the Western world is in danger, he said. You heard him say they are in Switzerland. And it's in danger because those who are supposed to have to defend the values of the West are co-opted by a vision of the world that inexorably leads to socialism and therefore poverty. Argentina knows about this. South America knows about this. And CNBC says the right-wing leader, a self-described anarcho-capitalist. He loves liberty. That's the anarcho-capitalist. And he loves capitalism because capitalism means prosperity. Socialism means poverty and oppression. But never mind that, because the news media, honestly, the most corrupt institution in the United States of America. And good for him. I want to hang out with Milei. Milei makes sense. And naturally, when you go and tell the truth, one of my sayings, nothing gets you in trouble like the truth. And that is a fact, Jack. He took the place by storm, and therefore he's being attacked. Socialism leads to poverty. Capitalism leads to prosperity. And that gets you in trouble because it's true. Amazing stuff. The left, they're after Christianity and Christians and Catholics. The left here in the United States, the FBI, the Democrat Party. Joe Biden is a fake Catholic. I'm fine saying that. I've had people say, don't call him a fake Catholic. Why? He is a fake Catholic. Speaking of Joe Biden, let's go to Joe Biden because he's been on a Joe Biden tear. Let's go. It's actually soundbite number one. Let's go to soundbite number one. Joe Biden with Marine One helicopter behind him making noise. And he was asked, hey, you keep bombing yet another country like Democrats always do. And now you're bombing Yemen and the Houthi rebels there. How many times has he bombed? It's 4 or 6 times he's bombing them all over the place. And he was asked by a reporter. It was kind of an amazing thing. Asked by a reporter, so tell me, Mr. President, you're bombing the Houthis. This going to make them stop firing at ships going into the Red Sea, including 2 American ships that have been hit recently? And it sounded like this.
Are the airstrikes in Yemen working?
Well, when you say working, are they stopping the Houthis? No. Are they going to continue? Yes.
Now, wait a minute. Stopping the Houthis, no. Are they going to continue? Yes, he says. Do you mean the airstrikes are going to continue or the Houthis are going to continue? Because that is unclear to me. I think the Houthis are going to continue. The airstrikes are going to continue because, the Obama-Biden administration bombed and attacked 8 different countries while Obama was president. Joe Biden, I believe, has dropped bombs on at least 4 countries now, and they're all Muslim countries. And all 8 countries under Obama were all Muslim countries. You'd think that they'd call them racists because they pretend that Islam is a race. It's pretty amazing stuff. So U.S. forces strike Iran-backed Houthi sites in Yemen. This is from last night. Again, we continued to bomb Yemen, and Joe Biden is asked if it's stopping the Houthis, and he said no. And then he said it's going to continue, and that means that I guess the bombing will continue. I think that's what he meant to say, but it's impossible to be certain because it's Joe Biden doing the talking here, right? And then yesterday, no longer with the helicopter in the background, he once again made the crazy claim that his son, Beau Biden, who was an Army lawyer, that his son, Beau Biden, died because of his service in Iraq, because he said burn pits. And, he didn't say it yesterday, but he said that his son was in Iraq as a lawyer in the Army uniform, and there were burn pits destroying debris, and that the burn pits put out toxic smoke. And he therefore fallaciously concluded, without evidence, as the media likes to say, and as the Democrats like to say, but I repeat myself, without evidence that his son Beau's brain tumor, a fairly rare brain tumor, and Beau was the good guy. He was not the crackhead, not the Russian hooker dater, not the stripper knocker-upper, not the international business tycoon that Hunter was. And he was the Attorney General of the state of Delaware. He had a political future, and it's tragic that he died at a young age of brain tumor. All of that's true. But what is not true is that his son died because he served in Iraq, and that's where he got a brain tumor because of burn pits.
I did that at an event.
Didn't
Didn't have chairs, and the press looked at me and said, "What the hell's the matter with that guy?" Anyway, Edward, thank you. Sergeant First Class, I was telling him my son, Beau, who I lost because of what happened in Iraq. Anyway, my son Beau, when he made major in Iraq, I was there. I wasn't with him when he made that, when he got promoted, but I was with him later at an event,
Anyway.
In Iraq.
In Iraq.
I didn't want to say where I was, but...
Didn't want to say where I was. Why are they laughing?
I said, Beau, congratulations, you're now a field grade officer.
Hey, it's true. You're a major, you become a field grade officer, you got scrambled eggs on your hat, and it's better to be a field grade officer. And Joe Biden strangely repeats false claim once again, which he's done over and over, and he's been called on it over and over again. And there are stories from left-wing publications from a year ago about Joe Biden telling this story, which he continues to tell over and over again. And he's not going to be the nominee come Election Day. I've been saying this for 6 months or so now, and now it is starting to be part of the discussion, is that he cannot be the guy come Election Day because his brain, she's a broke. His brain is, she's a no good. That brain of his, that's a no good. But he made that, and again, it's been debunked again and again. Random population more likely to have this type of brain tumor. Vietnam veterans more likely to have this type of brain tumor. And it's a tragic death, but, you know, a single death is a tragedy. A million deaths are a statistic, as the Democrats like to say. And then Joe Biden, speaking to the crowd, makes reference to someone in the crowd that it's a congresswoman that he wants to acknowledge, to recognize in the crowd. The problem is that and he says, I just had my picture taken with her, and he calls out the congresswoman who's not there because he didn't just have his picture taken with her, because she's in Washington, D.C. and not in the crowd where Joe Biden is speaking. And he got it all wrong, and he's very confused. Now, the Fox News people, Biden appears to confuse woman with Democrat congresswoman who wasn't in attendance. So he's looking apparently at a woman in the crowd, and he thinks it's a member of Congress, but it's not. And then he realizes that it's not the woman that he thought it was, and he admits that he's confused.
I also want to mention Congressman Deborah Ross. Where's Deborah? I just had my picture taken with her. That's probably why she left. No, all kidding aside. Anyway, she couldn't be here, actually. That's not true. I got it mixed up.
Yeah, she couldn't be here, actually, because she's in Washington, and Congresswoman Deborah Ross says he just had his photo taken with the Congresswoman in North Carolina before realizing she wasn't there. She wasn't in the crowd. She wasn't in North Carolina. She was nowhere to be found, but he said he just had his picture taken with her, but he didn't. His brain, she's a no good. She's a no good. Now, this is, of course, he did the same thing. What was it, a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago, when he wanted to go to a woman who's a member of Congress in the crowd, and he's making reference to her. The problem last year was that she had died in a car accident a month earlier, and he was acknowledging her and thanking her for being in the crowd when she was deceased. But when you're Joe Biden and when you're a Democrat, that's not a problem. Joe Biden's brain, she's a broke. She's a no good. He's got to go. But when you have the news media in your back pocket, it doesn't matter. Just like his groping Tara Reid, sexually assaulting Tara Reid didn't matter. His sniffing women and grabbing women and manhandling women. None of it matters. None of it matters. Because the media is the most corrupt institution in America. There is a lot more. And the Mayorkas impeachment, he didn't even show up. This is how arrogant these people are. And the mothers of children killed because of our open borders. Mayorkas is being impeached and he didn't even show up. He didn't even bother. We're a third world country.
There's only one Chris Plant. The Chris Plant Show.
Yes. You may remember in 2022, Joe Biden called on a deceased member of Congress who he thought was in the crowd, but she was deceased.
And I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie?
Jackie Walorski.
She was going to be here.
Yeah, she's not there because her funeral was 3 weeks earlier. As Joe Biden. That was in 2022, September of August. She died in August of 2022. Joe Biden is not up to the job of being president. If we had a legitimate news media, we'd be having a very different discussion. Hey, we've got a lot more wacky Democrat hijinks coming up. Lots and lots of hijinks.